Hello, welcome to this video, and today we're going to discuss the fractal nature of our universe. So let's start with a little story. Let's imagine that we have somewhere when the universe was very young, a soup of hydrogen atoms bouncing around, bumping into each other, sometimes hitting each other so violently that they trigger chain reactions, nuclear fission, and a nuclear blast. So a very chaotic universe. What happens is somewhere in the future, as one potential outcome of what can happen to that soup of atom, there exists the idea or the concept of a star or a sun. How can it already exist in the future? It's simply that of all the possible outcomes of the interactions of a soup of hydrogen atoms, it is the only outcome which actually builds something greater, builds something that is greater than the sum of its parts. All the other stories are circular stories which will just end up in a loop. There's no way out. Now, that idea or potential exerts a form of attraction on that soup of atoms. It's almost the same as a force of attraction of a black hole on its surroundings. And so that one potential sends little signals or information into the past, you could say. It's actually outside of time. This idea sits outside of time, but let's assume that it's the future that sends information into the past for these hydrogen atoms to start trying or exploring new possibilities for different interactions than just hitting each other and colliding into each other, and gradually forming what will become that star in the future. But as that process happens, here on the other side, you have a sort of, it's a sort of a mirror. You have all the potential solar systems and galaxies that are made possible thanks to the fact that these hydrogen atoms start behaving and interacting with each other in line with the idea of a star, basically discovering nuclear fusion instead of nuclear fission as a way of interacting with each other. So as the past moves towards the future, so the future also moves towards the past. It's sort of, it's a two-way process. It's almost like it's this feedback loop of the past and the future. So as the hydrogen atoms behave more and more like a star, all of the possible fractal variations from that idea also start to emerge and become clearer. Now, this also explains this, it gives the answer to this riddle of which came first between the chicken and the egg. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's actually the chicken and the egg at the same time, according to this model. It is the future and the past which enter into a sort of a dialogue. And as the past behaves more like this kind of portal, there's one sort of portal here which serves as the bridge between two levels of reality, two stages in the evolution of the universe. And now we're going to see that You can call this portal the bridge between the laws of physics and the laws of chemistry. The idea of nuclear fusion, the star, is what enables the bridge between the laws of physics and chemistry. Now, here, this is the world of physics, let's say, and this is the world of chemistry. And here, then, the suns, of course, inside each star, now we know, are forged all of the other elements, helium, then lithium, and all of the others, and then they start forming planets and so forth. Now, there's another bridge here. Let me just erase here this so that I can create the bridge. What is this here? This is the living cell, life. From all of the possible interactions of all the chemical elements, there is one story which is not a circular kind of loop, and that is the emergence of life. So inevitably, this idea of a living cell or of life exerts again an influence on the past and leads to the inevitable emergence of life. And again, now you can see that this is the portal and the bridge between chemistry and biology. And now from a living cell, what do you have again? All possible fractal variations from this living cell, which is plants, animals. Here you have minerals, let's say, planets, water. And guess what this bridge is? From all of the different fractal variations that you can make out of this one idea of a living cell, you can have plants, you can have animals. It reaches out all the way to humans, and humans is the only way that you will not have a circular story out of biology. Because we are a sort of a transcendence of biology. We're the bridge between biology and something else. And again, what exerts, of course, so there is a form of attraction that this exerts on the past, but then what is on the other side here? What's on the other side? Extraterrestrials. And what is this human right here? Jesus, Buddha, what people in these esoteric circles call ascended masters. Which basically embody the rules for a harmonious interaction between human beings so that we can behave like one global organism. Just like the idea of the living cell includes all of the rules for a harmonious interaction of all the chemical components that are inside that cell. Just like the idea of the star includes the rules of a harmonious interaction of hydrogen atoms to form something bigger than the sum of its parts. So when you have people today that are channeling Pleiadians, Arcturians, and plenty of different other ET races from higher dimensions or whatnot, understand that they are just a fractal variation that is made possible from humanity reaching the point where we interact in a harmonious way and behave like a global collective organism based on models or templates which are embodied by individual humans that have ascended early, like Buddha or Jesus, or Moria, I don't know, Babaji, all kinds of other ones. They are the template. They are the same as this idea of a star from which all variations are then possible. All the various different stars that we have in our universe are made possible. So they are fractals, just like we are also a fractal out of a living cell. Maybe I'll show you here this image, which shows you this logic of a fractal. This is a very well-known image of, this first living cell the first living cell that appeared somewhere in the past, and then all of life, all of diversity of life, then emerges from it and spreads into fractals, infinite fractals from that one living cell. We are just the last manifestation of that fractal, which itself becomes a seed for a new fractal, which spreads into an infinite possible futures. So you see that from us reaching a point where we interact and behave in a harmonious manner, we create the possibility of Pleiadians, Arcturians, and all of the others to exist. So we're speaking to our one potential future, which depends on us moving through that portal, through that gate, and then splitting into an infinite amount of new stories, which are not circular, where we don't disappear and the universe reverts back to, just plants and animals and things like that. They are not able to leave the planet. They are not able to explore the galaxy or the universe, where we are. But in order to do so, we first have to be aligned. We first have to be centered. We first have to find balance from which everything can be recreated. The evil, the good, we may have, at some point, we may turn potentially into an evil race or a good race or whatever. What matters is that this energy, this because before hydrogen atoms, you just have pure potential, pure energy. This energy has to be molded each time into something that allows for infinity to explore itself fully. It cannot be these rules are made so that infinity can explore itself in all of its diversity. If, for instance, you have the living cell, the rules of the living cell are just slightly different, slightly off, all of the possibilities that are a fractal of that one won't be able to manifest. If you eliminate, for instance, the interaction between carnivores or whatever, it already restricts a lot of this. It already restricts a lot of this fractals. A lot of this wouldn't exist. So you understand that once we reach the point where we become a global organism which can interact in harmony, then from that we can become a peaceful race or a violent race. It doesn't really matter. The point is we have to go through that portal, and then the rest is just, a story. So what really exists in the universe is these portals. That's all that really exists. These are outside of time. They exist outside of time. You can say that these are like God, like universal concepts. and the rest is just energy that is testing these concepts and these ideas to see what everything is possible, all of the things that are possible from that variation, from that idea, as variations, as fractals. So I hope this video was clear. I hope it makes sense to you, and you understand a bit more what we're doing here. What is this process? Just one thing. This is what I guess people refer to as dimensional shift. Some call it the move to 5D or whatever, but this is ridiculous. I mean, these or from 3D to 5D, but there is no 3D, there is no 5D. What there is are these ideas. These are the dimensions. These are the dimensions, really. From the idea of a star, it's a completely different ballpark, a completely different universe that is made possible from the idea of a star onwards. And it's a completely different universe that is made possible from the emergence of a living cell than a soup of amino acids and proteins just swimming in the sea. It's a completely different universe, and it's a completely different reality once humanity sort of starts behaving like one global organism. It's kind of like a birth. It's kind of like coming out of the womb of Gaia. A baby that is born out of the womb probably experiences that as going into another dimension. From the womb, where there is darkness, into the light, gets to experience its parent, Gaia, from outside and not inside the womb. And the metaphors here are infinite. You can say fossil fuels is the same as being nourished via the umbilical cord. You can say that the placenta, which gets separated upon birth, are the humans that won't make the cut into the new reality because they are cells that are not ready to behave like one global collective organism. So yes, what we're living right now is a dimensional shift in the sense that we will become part of a global organism. And when that happens, it's almost like something magical. Understand that the cells in our body, they don't require to make any effort to find food. We have to make that effort. So once we behave like a collective global organism, then you have the emergence in our reality that would manifest as revolutionary free energy technologies, a complete overhaul of the financial system, allowing for each human to thrive. After a painful process of birth, because birth is a very traumatic experience, both for the mother and the child. And that's what we're experiencing right now when you're talking about climate change, climate inside the womb and outside the womb is pretty different, or natural disasters. I mean, just think about contractions and the violence of the contractions when a mother is giving birth. It's pretty violent, and a lot of actually babies usually typically lose part of their weight when they're born, so a lot of their cells basically die, and then they start thriving. So it's a huge shift which awaits us. But ultimately, on the other side, as the baby catches his first breath, when the umbilical cord is cut, that's when it's almost as if the fusion, nuclear fusion, or us being all able to feed off of prana or whatever happens almost instantly, because once the lungs start functioning, then you're sort of self-sufficient. You don't have to rely on your mother to find food or to actually get energy. And understand that obviously this process is flawless, which means that why are these technologies or these possibilities not available to us now? Well, the baby catches its first breath only once it's outside of the womb, no sooner, no later. Otherwise, it would suffocate. So this is all extremely normal. And you could think of these ETs as being the doctors that are on the other side waiting for the baby to be born and assisting in the process. So, in other words, it's all good. And obviously, it may appear as something magical because obviously, imagine if you could see the emergence of the first living cell from the point of view of amino acids and proteins. It would look like something absolutely magical because it's a totally different ballpark, totally different game. If you could see the first emergence of a star from the point of view of an isolated hydrogen atom which is still bouncing around chaotically, it's magical. It's almost like this disappears from your eyesight. It's almost like the individual hydrogen atoms that are inside that star disappear from your eyesight because they become something greater than the sum of their parts. So this idea of the new Earth and the old Earth kind of separating into two, well, yes, obviously that's partially true because the amino acids and proteins which compose the living cell are no longer just that once they're part of that living cell. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I hope this video was useful.